It's Valentine's Day, a time that is supposed to be about love, connection, and relationships. But in today's world, it is also quietly becoming about money, costs, and economic pressure. Because what used to be a simple emotional experience is now deeply influenced by financial realities, where dating is no longer just about chemistry and compatibility, but also about affordability expectations and economic positioning. And this shift is happening because the structure of the economy itself is changing the way people live, interact, and form relationships. And to understand this, we need to go back to a time when dating and relationships were shaped very differently, because historically, relationships were often built around economic necessity, where two people coming together meant shared resources, shared responsibilities, and greater financial stability, which made long-term partnerships more common and marriage more economically beneficial. But in modern economies, especially in developed countries, individuals are more financially independent, which has changed the dynamics of relationships because people no longer need a partner for survival, but instead seek emotional compatibility, personal growth, and lifestyle alignment. And while this shift has increased personal freedom, it has also introduced new economic challenges, because living alone is significantly more expensive than sharing costs. And this creates what economists sometimes refer to as a single-person premium, where individuals who live alone pay more per person for housing, utilities, food, and daily expenses, compared to those who share these costs. And this means that choosing to stay single or delay relationships can come with a hidden financial cost that accumulates over time. And at the same time, the process of dating itself has become more expensive, with the rise of urban living higher cost of entertainment, and the normalization of spending on experiences such as dining, travel, and activities, which increases the financial burden associated with forming and maintaining relationships. And this is further amplified by social media and cultural expectations, where people are exposed to idealized versions of relationships that often involve expensive lifestyles, which creates pressure to spend more in order to meet perceived standards. And this leads to a situation where dating becomes not just a personal experience, but also a financial one, where individuals must consider costs, budgets, and economic trade-offs when making decisions about relationships. And another major factor influencing modern dating is technology, particularly dating apps, which have transformed how people meet, interact, and choose partners. Because while these platforms have increased access and convenience, they have also introduced new economic dynamics where visibility, competition, and perceived value play a role, similar to markets, where individuals are constantly comparing options and optimizing choices. And this can lead to what economists call choice overload, where having too many options reduces commitment and increases the tendency to delay long-term decisions. And this delay can have economic consequences, because as people postpone relationships and marriage, they also delay financial milestones, such as buying a home, starting a family, or building shared wealth. And this can impact long-term financial stability and economic growth patterns at a societal level. And at the same time, income inequality and rising living costs are further shaping dating behavior. Because individuals may prioritize financial security, career development, and personal stability before entering relationships, which shifts the timeline of dating and reduces the likelihood of early, long-term commitments. And this is especially visible in major cities where the cost of living is high and individuals must allocate a large portion of their income to basic expenses, leaving less room for discretionary spending on dating and relationships. And as a result, dating becomes more selective, more strategic, and sometimes more transactional, where financial stability and earning potential can influence attraction and compatibility, which introduces a new layer of complexity into relationships. This is where the economics of dating becomes most visible, because decisions that were once purely emotional are now influenced by financial considerations, whether consciously or subconsciously. And this does not mean that love has disappeared, but rather that it is operating within a different economic framework, where costs, risks, and incentives play a larger role. And this raises an important question: are modern relationships becoming a financial decision as much as an emotional one? And if so, what does that mean for the future of dating, marriage, and society as a whole? And this is where the real story begins. But what happens next is where the real transformation of modern dating becomes clear, because as economic pressures increase, relationships themselves begin to change, not just in how they start, but in how they function, evolve, and sometimes even end, because when financial stress becomes a constant factor, it influences decision-making priorities and expectations in ways that were far less significant in the past. And this is where the concept of relationships as economic partnerships starts to reemerge, but in a completely new form. Because instead of being based on necessity like in the past, modern relationships are increasingly shaped by cost sharing, efficiency, and long-term financial planning, where couples often evaluate compatibility, not only in emotional terms, but also in financial habits, income stability, and future earning potential. And this creates a situation where money becomes a central topic much earlier in relationships, influencing decisions about where to live, how to spend, and whether to commit long-term. And at the same time, the rising cost of living is pushing more couples to delay major milestones, such as marriage, home ownership, and having children, because these decisions now require a higher level of financial security than before. And this delay has broader economic implications because it affects housing markets, consumer spending patterns, and even population growth, which shows how deeply connected personal relationships are to the overall economy. And another important shift is the increasing trend of dual-income households, where both partners are expected to contribute financially, which can improve overall stability, but also introduces new challenges related to work-life balance, career prioritization, and income inequality. Within relationships, and when both partners are focused on career growth, it can create time constraints, stress, and conflicts that impact relationship quality and longevity. And this highlights a paradox where financial stability can both strengthen and strain relationships depending on how it is managed. And at the same time, the gig economy, remote work, and flexible employment structures are adding another layer of complexity because income is becoming less predictable for many individuals, which increases financial uncertainty and makes long-term planning more difficult. And this uncertainty can influence relationship decisions as people may be hesitant to commit without stable income or may prioritize flexibility over long-term stability. And as these trends continue, the traditional model of relationships is being